Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody is enjoying the beautiful day. The snow is disappearing here in Toronto. Hi, Martine. I can see Martine's on, and Shelley is online as well. I see Giasandro. Boy, I sound like Mr. Dress Up in the morning. Hey, Shelley. Nice to see how you're doing. I love all of your things you're doing. Ciao, Giasandro. Lorenza, if I can just get you to just press to join the conversation. Hey, Lauren. You can see Lauren on the fellow Italians are all joining on very quickly here. Lorenza was just on television this morning in Italy, so she's had quite the full busy day. So I'll just wait for Lorenza to join on before I do her long bio intro for her as well. Just going to play with a bit of lighting here as well. Martine's been helping me make sure that there's not too much of a glare off of my bald head here. Let's see if we can get Lorenza to join on here. There, I'm going to actually invite her. I think it's around 7 p.m. right now in Lugano, where Lorenza is.
Hello.
Good morning, or good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, good morning to you. How are you?
Good. I see Douglas Mandel has joined us as well. We've got quite the clout on our live chat this afternoon.
Wow. Yeah.
You were on.
I'm Sandro. Hello, everybody. Hello, Fabrizio. Hello, Fabio, and all my friends from Italy. So we are in a big company.
Yeah. I'm still on my coffee here in Toronto. I'm sure you're on a glass
You
of
should
vino
share.
by now.
You should share. Wine and coffee have to share always, all the time.
What was your day like today? You were on television? You were on radio?
I was on television this morning and on radio 1 hour ago. Yeah.
Wow. So for those that don't know, obviously your European friends are very much familiar with you. For those that are tuned in here in North America, Lorenza is actually a corporate lawyer based in Lugano, also has offices in Dubai as well. She's the president of the Italian Mediators Group as well, speaks 5 languages. And thankfully for today, English is one of them because my Italian is, let me just think here, ciao, it is grazie.
Spaghetti,
and,
spaghetti,
yeah.
mama, pizza.
Yeah,
How do you
and
say mama, pizza? And that's all.
Those I struggle with as well. My wife is actually French, and it's very much one of those Latin languages, and and can pick up the Italian and the Spanish quite a bit. So a fascinating language. You and I have had discussions before, and I absolutely have a special place in my heart for Italy. Lugano, where you are, is between Milan and Rome. Is that correct?
Is between Milan and Austria. Is in Switzerland.
Ah, okay. No,
yeah.
Where you are.
Geneva. I'm based. Yeah, there.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we were in Geneva. I think it was 2 years ago. I actually lost my passports on.
Oh, really?
Twice to boot. On the way from Paris to Geneva, it was 3 trains, and yeah, it was a hassle getting passports back.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you need them because of the euro now? Do you need them as you travel around the country?
No, you can. No, you don't need any passport. If you are a European citizen, you can travel all around Europe without passport, just with your ID.
Okay. Yeah, and we have to do a special shout out to Giasandro, our friend from Milan, for this introduction. Giasandro just knows all of the cool, amazing people. So thank you, Giasandro, for the introduction.
Except for me, of course, but I'm the black sheep.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, no, you've definitely got an impressive data bank, an impressive roster as well. Douglas Mandel's actually joining on. I'm going to do an intro for you to Douglas afterwards. Douglas, wow, where do I start with Douglas? I'll fast forward. He went to ESSEC, the school in Paris that offers the master's degree in luxury brand management. And then he was with Christian Dior Couture for almost a decade in overseeing Russia and then most recently in Canada. And he's now with Hydra Advisory, which is based in Milan as well, which deals with a lot of luxury brands, whatever have you. So I'll do a separate introduction
Yes.
Fascinating guy, background, and just his connection pool. Boy, just to spend 5 minutes in his data bank would be
Wow,
fascinating.
wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Yeah,
I'm sure the
cool.
same as yours as well. So yeah, I'm happy this chat's not costing me 500 euro an hour. Um,
You're sure of it?
d-
Oh well,
I'll give you a
you can
different address to
definitely.
send the bill to.
We can share with John Sandra, of course.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So yeah, first off, how are you? You know, Italy has been all over the news here in Canada with the health crisis. How are you, and how is your country?
Well, you know what? I'm fine. And the thing is that everybody around me is fine. I don't know one person sick for COVID. So something is going to happen, but not only here, I guess. I heard about my cousin in Montreal and my friends in Vegas and my friends in Athens. And maybe I'm a lucky girl, but I haven't seen or heard about a friend of mine or my personal, I mean, relationship very close to me, one sick of COVID.
Oh
They
wow.
just want to create, I think, something very big all over the world. I just, maybe 5 or 7 minutes before we start our Instagram, they told me that Italy should be in lockdown for another 6 months. I wonder why, because I think that at the end of the year, we will know much more, I mean, much more people that because of starvation and anger and because they do not
Yeah.
work much more
Yeah.
than for COVID. So the question is, what's behind it? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
What's
and
your
I'm sure
opinion about it? How do
in,
you
in
feel it?
in your field, you're going to see the spin-off effects of it. Obviously, from we're going to spend the next hour just chatting about law and you've got a lot of experience, case studies. Obviously, you're the president of the mediators, in Italy as well. But the lawsuits that are going to come out of this as companies restructure, they reinvent themselves, or they look at how they're doing their business differently. And challenge there. It's going to be an interesting time over the next year on insurance cases or lawsuits on you forced me to close and that's why I'm out of business and I can't pay my bills, and it's because it's affecting all of us here
You
in
know,
Canada.
it's not a business if there is no money, because even the business lawyer works for something. So it's not a business, it's a kind of disaster.
Hmm.
Everybody is involved in something that we don't understand. So this
Hmm.
is a cold disaster. I saw
Yeah.
today on the television President Trump without mask. Good for him, because I think that the strength of a president and a person who leads a country
Hmm.
has to show the reality.
Sure.
This is the first time on human being story that they close in-house people in good oath. It never happened before.
Yeah.
Before they just closed down the sick one, not
Yeah.
the good oath one. So
Yeah.
why? What's
Yeah.
behind? Maybe the
Yeah.
economical global order is changing and they don't want us to realize it. I think it's something that it's related to this kind of point.
Yeah, and time will tell on this. I'm one that does a lot of my own personal research, and yeah, where it is and where it's going is something I'm not big on media to the right or to the left, as they say, and as a lawyer, I'm sure you've been fine tuned on, the truth is somewhere in the middle on this. So where is it? Why did we shut down the world's economies? It's not just a matter of restarting your car in the morning to go to work. It's the ripple effect is going to be quite dangerous from this. So what are you seeing? I've got a full list of questions to go over with you. But while we're on this health crisis, what are you seeing the changes in questions that your clients are asking you, or situations you're dealing with due to the health crisis?
Well, I can say there are too many fields of question. The first one is about they are afraid. They don't know what's the future gonna be. They had business plan and they are closing up for 6 months and maybe one more 6 months again. So how can they feed their children? Even the rich people. Can you imagine a businessman who project to invest a big volume of money in a project and maybe go to the bank and ask for money, and now everything is stopped? So the first thing is, how can I carry on with this situation? Then on the opposite side, I should say that there are many people with new ideas that comes and they want to start up a new business or to invent something that doesn't exist or didn't exist before. So it's always the fight between the death and life, the recreation of ourselves and the end of an era. Because, yeah, a kind of era has been closed. We will never have the war we had before this stop. I'm positive about it.
And you, I mean, you're in Italy. You travel extensively, and Europeans have been through economic hardships and world wars more so than we've seen in Canada or just even on the North American continent. So you've got, generations, in their 80s or 90s who maybe haven't seen it at this level before, but and we're never prepared either for this. But to your point, you're right on where are we going with this, and what is the, I think of both Douglas's comment and Giasandro, where they said, we're all going to be going through a reinvention, whether it's our business, our personal, and even Giasandro had brought up the comment of, we're in a fashion renaissance right now, which I think is fascinating. I'm an internal optimist. So what are the positives, that are going to come out of this? What's your opinion on that? Because you see it from your clients in not only in luxury or in fashion, but in automotive or manufacturing. You're in a unique position. Are you seeing a common theme of through all your clients?
Yeah, I think I'm a positive inside too. So I always try to see the light side of the moon and not the dark side one. And I think that something bad is going to happen, but something beautiful is going to happen too. I think that we were a kind of, when the mouse start to do the same things all the time, and then the system broke. It's kind of what happened during the big war or after the big war, because this is a kind of war. But the point is, we have to reconstruct a world who has not been distracted in reality, but we have a kind of distraction inside, in our mind, in our way to approach the world, the situation, the relationship too, our way to go to restaurant, to go to movie theater. Everything is gonna be different when hopefully as soon as possible they gonna open again.
Wow.
But I think that the first thing that make human beings so strong is fantasy. If you can imagine, you can do that. So we have a very strong power in our mind. We have to think something that is not real now, and we have to make it real. Yeah, we have to rebuild our common sense, our common life. We have to join the time, one another, most effectively than we did before.
Yeah,
I think this is the point.
I'm just following a bit of the thread here. Natalie in Australia is on, Franck in Paris, and some friends in the UK, which, on your comment, whether you're in, you're Natalie in Australia, you're in France, you're in Canada, to your comment on working together and coming together, do you find a common theme globally, as you travel and you've got offices around the world, and the Canadian shout out, you know, you had one of your degrees in Montreal as well. Do you find there's a common theme globally amongst the countries that will unite us?
Yeah, yeah. I do have a common team, and we work with the same project in our mind, which is to make business grows in a healthy way with the moral and ethical approach all the time. So I have new relation every time that I go somewhere and I meet people, and I want to understand their way of life, because if you want to make a new business in a new country, first of all you have to understand people. How do they feel? How do they dress? What do they drink? What do they eat? How do they keep in contact? How
Mm-hmm.
they introduce themselves? Common sense is different for each country in the world. So if you want to be understood, language, of course, is important, but it's not the first thing. The first thing is comprehension of the human being that you have in front of you. It's a kind
Mm-hmm.
of cultural feeling. It's about culture. You have to respect the other, understand the other, and of course you have to pretend to be respect too.
Yeah. Is that what you're finding? Because you travel quite extensively. You are an international lawyer, you know, in corporate and in fashion. And you brought that up, you know, as we were emailing back and forth on, you know, understanding the internalization, which I love the word, on setting up a business, you know, in a new country. You know, if you were to give the top three issues on, you know, let's say a Canadian wanting to set up in Milan or in Dubai or in Germany, you know, could
Mm-hmm.
you give us one, two, or three key aspects that maybe not be so obvious to us?
So the first key is that you cannot sell the same product in different countries in the same way. For example, the most known brand all over the world, Coca-Cola. If you want to sell Coca-Cola in US or in India or in Djibouti or in Italy, you have to know that the feel of tasting that you understand in USA, in India, in Djibouti, etc., is different because of the way you are as a human being influence the way you taste something. So to have the same taste, you have to change the taste of the product. So the first things for every kind of product is to understand again the culture, the tasting, and all the emotion that goes around it. The second thing is that you have to have a partner local, but you have to trust your partner. So you have to approach the partner with a person, I mean a counselor or whatever, who comes with you and help you to divide the right person. Otherwise, the risk is to waste money and to waste your time. And you just make a very beautiful holiday. I mean, you can go to Australia, you want to open a business, or you want to go to a holiday. So the first thing is understand culture. Think about the product, because if you want to sell a Ferrari, or if you want to sell Coca-Cola, or if you want to sell a purse, a pair of jeans or whatever, is different approach because of the country and because of the kind of product. After that, you study that, you have to think how much you want to invest in the project and what's the time that you want to have the turnover of the money. These are the three main fields that everybody has to think about it when they want to make internationalization of the business.
Do you have to set up your company? So let's say I've got a brand here in Canada, and there's one thing about Canadians, you know, we are a small country, and we're kind of forced by nature and the size of our country that we sell abroad. We market our products and services. Are we better? Let's say I'm a designer and a creative service and I want to do business in Italy. Do I have to set up a standalone company, or can I just import my products and services?
You can
or
do both
export my
ways.
products and services?
You can do both ways. It depends of how much you want to go inside the country. If you just need to sell your product, of course, you can import export the product. If you want to be in the country and to be felt as one of the country, it's another movie. You have to study the country, study the location,
Yeah.
choose the partner, and go on. But you can do both things. It
Yeah.
depends. You cannot give a general answer to this kind of question. Every time we make a kind of tailor-made project for the businessman we have in front, so we study what's the best for him and for his product.
Yeah. My next question. I'm quite curious to hear your response on. Um, in my conversation with Giosandro, he talked a lot about the Italian way, the way of life, having a 4-hour meal, and my wife and I love going to Italy and France, for that exact reason. Where I
Well,
posted
my
today
father
on
was
my
a
social.
chef, so I'm quite interested because my father was a chef. And so when you talk about eating or drinking, I'm in the band.
Yeah, honestly, it's something that I absolutely love. Is when you're sitting down for a meal in Italy, you just put your watch away, and it's just such a beautiful experience. But I shared this post today on social media, and we talk about fast fashion, and now we're in this health crisis globally, and retailers are going bankrupt daily. There's this new trend called slow fashion, and it is the intersection between being ethical, being eco, and having it last. And I came from a German upbringing where I wore hand-me-downs, and if something ripped, my mom sewed it, or it went to the seamstress to be repaired, and we spent a bit more money, but it was a quality staple piece that we had. Where Europeans have lived this way all of their lives, but I think the world is slowly coming to grips with the reality of this slow fashion where they're key staple pieces. Where I'm going with my question to you is, as a lawyer traveling around the world, you've got clients that are investing in production and manufacturing and trademark and putting down the copyright law, not to have a product. I don't care, it's going to be out of season in 2 weeks anyway. What is your take on this trend of slow fashion, or the industry as a whole, from that way quality?
Well, I trust in slow fashion. I trust in slow food. I trust in everything which is handmade and which is a culture behind. So the message is very important. If you want to transmit something to the customer, and if you want that the market can understand what you are selling, you have to improve yourself before telling others what they want to sell them. So slow fashion is fascinating. And I think Gian Sandro will be a very good partner in Italy if he is here with us to understand the importance of meaning of take time for yourself. We have been for many years a kind of generation who just buy and throw away, buy and throw away. It's a kind of wasting all over the world that cannot be affordable nowadays. Not because the COVID or the lockdown, but because our economies say, okay, you know what, stop. So everything which can and make us understand much better the meaning of time. So the slow fashion, the slow food, the slow drinking, and the slow of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good, idea to change the world and maybe to recognize ourselves better than we did
Yeah.
till
Yeah.
1 month ago.
That's an interesting comment you just said. I was taking it from a slow fashion standpoint, but the comment you said, about slow eating or slow drinking, and just, the Italian way, just enjoy the moment that you're in as well. That it's a yeah, it kind of goes against our norm. As you know, I'm heavily involved in fashion industry, and in sponsorships and dealing with, brands and others, we talk about the 6 second rule, where the average human attention span is 6 seconds. And if we don't see something we like on Instagram, we're constantly scrolling, because that's where our minds are right now. They say in traditional television, if they haven't captured, your or my attention for 6 seconds, we channel flick them and
Then
we're
it's
on to
gone.
something
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah.
it really is a reprogramming of our minds for, to your point, slow eating or slow drinking, or slow fashion as well. Yeah, what do you see are, and I may have asked this already, I'm going to just try it in a different way. The new issues coming out of this health crisis, both positive and negative, from a legal standpoint, are there any, or is it just still yet to be seen?
Well, I think there is some good and some bad, as always, in every situation. From this kind of health crisis, or how do they call it, pandemia, or we don't know, I think there are two main fields. The good one is, I hope we become more respectful with the other, so we can understand that every one of us can be a weapon if you have a sensitive person next to you. So you have to take care of yourself and of the people around you, because it can change the world. This is the first thing. So you have to be more conscious of yourself, of your health, and of the way that it can be very a problem for the person next to you, even if you don't know or you don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that we should be, we will be, not should be, but much more suspicious. When you talk with people, or when you walk down the street and you see people who look at you, and maybe you are not wearing the mask, and they say, what's wrong with her? She's on health or not.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of problem, because most of the people, if they became suspicious with you, it's a very big problem for the common safety, because you need nothing to start a crisis, to have a problem, to start a drama. You can imagine in the middle of a crowded square, if somebody fall down, what happened now that we have this kind of alarm for the COVID? It would be very, very dangerous for the general sense of protection. And in the civil law, we have to study again the rules of being together.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting one. As you know, I'm with Canadian International Fashion Film Festival, and yeah, our event it's a festival. We're beside each other. We hug, we kiss, we shake hands. We're an embracing society. But to your point, it's going to be a different one as well on how we deal, from social interactions. Which also brings up, a comment I've had in a number of chats. On the social shaming right now, it's amazing to a negative, how much, our world is, judging, they've got a mask on. Do I assume that they're sick? Is that why they're wearing a mask? On the other end of it is they're not wearing a mask. How disrespectful of my personal space, where, we're still trying to make sense of it all. And the social shaming, online is getting quite nasty as well. And it's not just between people to people, but to companies as well on, how dare they do that, or, they open their doors, too early, or they were insensitive. And again, I'm just bringing it back to your career as well. The legal ramifications of that, I honestly, I feel for companies, as, this has been thrown amongst them, and they've had literally no time to prepare or to sit down with Lorenza and, we got 6 months, how can we plan this out, Lorenza? It's like yesterday, like, give me an answer, Lorenza.
Yeah. I need it yesterday, of course. It's a problem. And in Italy, we are touching people, embracing people too. So you can imagine how can, little or medium company in Italy approach this kind of problem. When you go inside of the company in the morning and say, hi, everybody, and now you are working from home, and you are smart working, and you can you really have the same efficiency on your work?
Yeah.
When you, for maybe 20 years or 5 years or 10 years, have been working in a group, in a team, but a real team, not a virtual one, it's going to be, I mean, a very big changing, even in this kind of point of view.
Yeah. I see Anne Purvu has just joined us as well. She's a well-known actress on a number of Netflix series, and even the film industry being shut down. I don't know how big it is in Italy, but again, another industry where you've got 200 people on set moving around, right beside each other as well. And again, what are the new rules within the film industry, going to take off onto as well? One of the questions I wanted to get to you, just on a sustainability standpoint, where from a legal standpoint, so sorry, I'm constantly bringing this back to law because I'm dying for your input on this. And this is something that I won't say has bothered me, but it's been when sustainability had taken off, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, where, we were being a better consumer, we were being, better to our environment, but yet there was no regulations on what is the sustainability industry. I remember a brand I worked with, this is easily 10, 15 years ago, where they had a very small component of their garment that was bamboo, like less than 5%. But it's a bamboo garment and it's got all these properties. 95, 98% was polyester, but it had a little bit of bamboo in it. But there was no government regulations whatsoever, and they're getting sustainability grants, and they're using their hang tags all over the place. This is now 2020. Sustainability is still growing. Where I'm going with my question for you is there a government regulation on that industry? Is it country to country? Where is sustainability really overseen?
Well, in Europe, we have general law for sustainability that you can apply state from state, and you have the main field. So that the single country have to approach the team in a way, but you have not the same rules in all the country around. And as what concern America, you have different law in different country. You have federal state, so each state got his own law. So sustainability is a very important field to study and to approach for a business company or whatever, but we still do not have a common regulation all over the world. And this is a problem. And then you have to realize that you have many persons who say that sustainability is not a problem. The president of the United States say that, it's a mess. We don't care about it. So it depends even on the politician that leads the single country. They can change the rule or whatsoever as long as they lead the country. And that's a problem too, because you have not the sense of sustainability that can keep on. And it should be, because it's a common problem which involves every one of us. If we are in business or not, sustainability is a common problem.
Yeah, it ties into our earlier comment where we were talking about slow fashion, where you could buy something that was sustainable. It was made out of leaves in my back yard. It had a less than a 10-kilometer footprint, so to speak, but it's thrown away in a week. Is that really truly being sustainable compared to buying a good cotton or a tweed jacket that I'm going to have for the next decade as well? So I get what you're saying. It's only a matter of the government's getting involved or what have you. One of the questions I'm going to be all over the map here. I apologize.
Okay.
Is endorsement disclosures for influencers. So I'm not sure how it works across Europe and North America. Influencers or celebrities which are promoting brands, they're being gifted, in the guise of pay to play. Do influencers in Europe or Dubai or other places you work with, do they have to highlight what's paid for versus what? Like, what are the legal rules on endorsement disclosures?
Well, it depends on the country again. You have no general rules for influencer, but considering that this is a new, very important strand for the market, they should be regulated much more strictly than they are nowadays.
Right.
Even in Italy, they are getting much more important as the day goes by. And I think that even with the lockdown and people who can start to buy much more online than in a shop, the way that influencer can move the market should be regulated much more better than it is nowadays.
Right. But at what point, I struggle with, obviously a brand wants to take out an ad in Vogue and a magazine, and they can track it and they can follow it, and there's advertising standards that follow that up, compared to an influencer who puts their own authenticity on it. They're using the hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored, but and I'm a fan of it, don't get me wrong, but at what point, does the brand get away with a lot more than they would have, if they would have taken a full page ad in a Vogue magazine?
Well, well, I mean, it's everything is gonna happen very fast. So it's not slow market or slow fashion or slow food. So even your question or your consideration, maybe I can give you an answer now, but tomorrow is going the world is gonna change. So it's not tomorrow the same view of today, and the day after tomorrow again. Everything is going to change so fast that I can't tell you now what's the way we're going to be tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, it's I'm constantly fascinated by following influencers or celebrities on how they're endorsing a product, and it may be off script with a brand that Lorenza just spent 6 months helping them
working
with,
on it.
and guiding their messaging, and meanwhile that authenticity was just thrown out the window to help sell the product.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, business is business. So, it's
yeah.
a rule. It's a rule. It's a rule of the market. It's the market who decide.
What are you finding? Again, I'm bringing it back because you travel extensively, you speak multiple languages. What are you finding the most common issue in not just fashion law, which you work in, but other parts of law as well? Is it counterfeit? Is it intellectual property? What's the biggest issue you're dealing with? Maybe it's in Italy where you are, or is it Dubai, or Europe as a whole? What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, intellectual property is very important. Then you have the protection of the brand, of course. The fraud is another big theme, or the custom protection and the criminal protection. But if I have to say only one, of course, protection of intellectual property is the main field. And you have problems all over the world. For what is concerned Italy, the main problem is, Italian sounding, Italian tasting, Italian brand make you sell much more than other French tasting or Spanish tasting or German tasting. So they try to make fraud using Italian sounding names, but they are not Italian. So we have to protect the made in Italy better than we did till today.
Does here in Canada, and I won't quote the Textile Act, but we can have the product, a large portion of it made overseas, but if it's finished in Canada and it's 51% of the end cost, it's legally made in Canada. and it's not right, quite
No,
frankly, in my opinion. Does Italy have a similar law? Because obviously,
I mean,
made in Italy carries a lot of water.
all the country have the similar law, or they talk about the percentage of the work that has been made to realize the product, or the final level of the before the end of the production. So you have this kind of discrimination, or the percentage. So you have much more than 50% in a country, and let's say it comes from Canada, or the ultimate step before going to market. So you have each country decide between these two kind of rules.
So who would bring up a case like that? So if you're working with a client and 40% of it was made in Vietnam, it came into Milan to be finished. It's now 60% finished in Milan. It's now marketed as made in Italy. The price goes up because it's made in Italy. But a consumer really wants to know what was the true background. Who brings that? Is it a government situation? Is it a consumer that would bring it up? Like, who would get involved to call Lorenza?
It's the government that's, I mean, for the big problem, or even the consumer. You can make class action if you think there is a fraud behind a product. And so we can come and verify what's the truth about it.
Right. Is it a big issue in Europe? Do you find it, or is it not?
It's a quite big issue. Even much more than Europe for Italian, for the made in Italy. Yeah. You have the Parmigiano or the Parmesan, but you have the Parmigiano, and that's the only made in Italy product. But you can find a freaking or similar product all over the world. So you have to fight against it. Sophistication or whatever have to be fight, because it's a damage for all the commercial and all the business all over the world.
Sure. I was doing research for a speech I gave years ago, and was absolutely fascinated by the statistic that 69% of olive oil in the world is counterfeit.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that. In the food industry, I mean, and obviously Spain is number one, for olive oil production. But, do you see that in the food industry, or is it solely in fashion?
No, I'm in all kind of, a business lawyer works with different kind of companies, because it doesn't mean so much what do you product, but is the approach that a business lawyer have when it approach a company. So you can product pizza or jeans or Maserati, it doesn't matter. You have to approach the business and the legal consult to make the business grow. Okay. And so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I have different business men who comes and ask for my advice, and they come from different fields of company and business and economy and etc.
Yeah. And I don't know what you can share and what you can't, but what would be one of your most challenging legal situations you've had over the years?
Well, that's a good question. If I have to say one, let me think about it. I think it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and a friend of mine called me and said, "Lorenzo, there is a problem. You have to go to Uganda, which is in Africa, because I have a truck which is stuck there because they don't want to move, and my business is gonna fall down because I need this first material to make my product, and I have 30 days to end the products. Otherwise, all the business blows up." So it was maybe 9 o'clock at night, and the next morning I had my plane from Rome to going to Africa, and in 3 days I come back with the truck and the business, and they start again. And that's it was a big adventure, and something I remember as something that makes me happy every time that I think about it.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Rome. You know, the famous saying, all roads lead to Rome. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you can go.
All
What,
leaves and all come back to Rome.
I'll
Yeah.
come back to Rome, yeah, the other way around. What brought you to Montreal, if I can ask you? I believe it was McGill. You had done a fellowship at McGill.
Yeah. I had my PhD in McGill. I was
Okay.
a young girl and I studied family law and contract law. And I
Okay.
spent almost 2 years there coming back and forth from Montreal to Italy. Yeah. I love
Similar
it.
to similar to Toronto, a very, very large Italian community.
Yeah, I know. And I think I have some very far relatives up there in Toronto. I have to ask my mother, but I think some Morellos around there. You can check on it. You can
I
ring the
had
bell and ask, hello, are you a friend of my friend Lorenza? Maybe you're a
I had
cousin.
I had the discussion with Giussandro as well, and I probably say it way too often, but Toronto is the fourth largest Italian community of Italians. Italy, Sao Paulo, Brazil, New York, and Toronto. I'm sure Montreal is there. I see the comment from my wife, who loves her native Montreal as well.
Uh-huh.
So my next question for you is, again, curious on your take on this from a law standpoint, because it's very much, analytical, or it's by the book, or it's case studies, whatever have you. But fashion is, if not, one of the most creative industries in the world, from photographers, from designers to PR firms, textile creators. I mean, we could talk forever on who's all involved. It's creating trends. It's about personal expression. But how does law play into that when it is a creative expression that has to be regulated for protection?
I know. Um, I mean, the point is fashion and law. So a lawyer specialized in fashion law can deal every day with practices related to small, medium, or large companies, and also related to very creative people,
Mm-hmm.
individual, stylists, businessmen, etc. So the synergy between intellectual and creative work is essential. Um, a lawyer who cares about fashion have to be has to be open mind, has to be very flexible, very fast to take a decision or to understand what's the problem and where is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to turn or to move other ways. You have
Mm-hmm.
to improve your skills in that direction to be a good fashion lawyer, of course.
Yeah. Because you've got, obviously, the luxury houses of the world. They're in a different type of a situation. They're protecting themselves from counterfeit, and from blatant knockoffs. Aside from a specific color or a Burberry plaid or whatever have you. From a luxury house standpoint, what would be one of their biggest concerns aside from counterfeit of a product?
Oh well, colors. Colors are a problem because when they say the next year the color is purple, why, where, when, who? So if you work on fashion fields, the colors and is and the texture of the product are the two main points to realize if you want to open a market or approach a new business.
Interesting. It's aside from you can't trademark a Pantone color, but I know in Canada we have Whole Renfrew. I don't know if you remember them from your time in Montreal, where they have a specific scarlet that they've marked off as well. I think we have time for one last question. The time just flies by here, but this world that we're in now, and you and I are taking advantage of this, online communication, whether it's Instagram Live or Facebook or Uber Connects, there's so many of these. We're now meeting, we're shopping, we're banking online. You've had quite a background in law, and because of this health crisis, everything is changing, and there's not just positive opportunities, but there's those that are going to take advantage of the legal system as well.
with this online world that we're in right now, Douglas Mandel had called it the Generation V, Generation Virtual.
Yeah.
What do you foresee? I'm asking you to have a crystal ball here, but what do you foresee as some legal issues coming out of this?
The fraud is the first problem to me, because you can have foster identity, foster product. We saw a person in Italy who sold, I, he had, he was supposed to have a restaurant, and he had the restaurant booked up for a year, but the restaurant did not exist, and people paid to book the table. Can you imagine if you have not the chance to go and verify what's going on? Fraud is the first big problem that we have to afford with virtual reality.
Wow. I mean, but there's only so much research we can do as a consumer. There's a
That's
lot
why
of
it's
trial.
always come after. The first approach to the consumer is instinctive. So is the passion. You told about 6 minutes or 6 seconds to make a choice, and then we verify later. So we have to be much more suspicious, or to think before doing something, because later always is too late.
Yeah.
Tomorrow will be too late. It's now or never.
Yeah, it's I remember, and I don't know if it was the same in Europe, but in 2005 privacy legislation passed where it was illegal for me to sell a data bank of email lists and phone numbers. And this was 2005, and sure enough 2007 comes along, and a college kid by the name of Mark or Zuckerberg comes along and creates Facebook, and give me your friends list, give me all of your
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
Where do you work? Where do you live? Like it was just such a slap in the face of privacy legislation. But we as consumers, where's that fine line on I'm willingly sharing, who my friends are, where I work, where I live, what am I doing tonight, versus, blatant privacy. What's the law on that?
I know. In Europe, we have the GDPR, the General Regulation for Privacy, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Even if you think that people take his life and throw it on internet, on Facebook, you can know everything about everybody, where they are, what they eat, who they are in love with, what they are doing, how much do they earn. So how can they pretend to be protected if they are the first one who gives all the private details to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
It's again a question of common sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but common sense doesn't hold up in court. So where?
Well, in common law, they use common sense much more than in the civil law in Italy, because in common law you have the judge made law, so the judge can rules the law.
Okay.
In Italy and in Europe and in the civil law, we have the civil code who make the law. So
Okay.
it's very slow to change the law in this kind of system. And in common law, it's easier, and even it's much more affordable for people to be understood in front of a court.
Okay. Where does I didn't get a chance, and in the few minutes we've got left, the hour has flown by. I could talk to you for hours because I'm fascinated by your background.
Maybe next time with John Sandro and all the friends, we can make a party of 3.
Yeah, exactly. The conversation it'd be better done in person over lots of wine.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the president of the Italian Mediators. What does that entail for those that have never been in a mediation before?
Okay, so easily say, mediation comes from the ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution, from the ADR family, and it's I would say it's the technique of presenting and arguing a client position, needs, and interest in a non-adversarial way. I mean, the outcome that comes from mediation is usually more satisfying, more effective, and more workable more flexible and more durable for the people who are involved in the mediation, because they can decide by themselves if instead of the order imposed by a court or a tribunal, the parties can control the process and the outcome. So usually it's cheaper, faster, and more workable for everybody.
Right.
So better for business, of course.
Is there a common issue that comes up where mediators come into play, or is it all over the map?
No, it's all over the map.
Wow. Yeah, I can see it from, NDAs. I wanted to touch briefly on NDAs as well, where not just in fashion, but, in others. And, we're in a day and age where I've got this idea for an app and I think it's going to make $1 billion, but you're afraid of telling anybody, and you sign an NDA, and, one little version, has changed or is different, and that NDA has now become, null and void. Is it the same issue in Italy?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, quite similar. Yeah.
Okay. We've got Renzo DiCarlo had just joined us as well, a fellow Italian.
Thank you for joining us.
He does a lot of the Ironmans. He's actually the CEO of Biopharma, which is into the medical field as well. So yeah, literally in the last minute or 2 minutes we've got left, is there any closing comments you want to share with us, and not just in Canada but in Italy, on where your thoughts are on us getting out of this current situation we're in?
Well, current situation, I mean, we talk about it at the beginning of this good conversation, and I thank you and Giansandro again for having the possibility to talk to you and to compare our point of view. I mean, if I have to express my will my willing for the future, is that we can keep in touch in reality and discover a new world when we can work together with, that I love the way to say the common sense, which is the rule who should lead the world all over. So, my hope is that the common sense will take its place in our lives again, and we can take the chance to restart a new world, a new economy, a new way of life as soon as possible.
I love the way you framed that, a restart and common sense. For me, if there's one thing, that's come out of this, is the fact that, we're thinking of our own health. We're washing our hands. We're trying to be a better global citizen.
We should do it all the day. And all the time, not because there is a virus. It's a common sense rule. If you can at home, you wash your hands.
People are not feeling well, but I can't afford any days off. I'm not going to get paid. I can't afford. I'm going to go to work because I'm not 100% feeling well. Where now, if there's one thing out of this health crisis, if you're not feeling well, stay home. It's just common sense. Yeah, it's just common sense that is really.
But you don't need a rule who tells you that.
I'm sorry?
If you can feel, you don't need a rule who tells you that. If you think that you can be a danger for somebody, stay home.
Yeah, no, 100%. So thank you. I see I've got the countdown going on. There's lots of questions.
My pleasure.
I didn't get to. So Lorenza, thank you so much for those that had tuned in. We're saving this on YouTube, so it'll be up on YouTube. So I'll make sure Lorenza is tagged, and you can follow the conversation and her brilliant advice. You can thank me later for saving you all €500 for the hour. And thank you. I look forward to seeing you in person.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. My pleasure. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Toronto. Bye.
Right. So I'm continuing discussions on the Instagram lives. Thank you again for Lorenza Morello, who is constantly on television, on radio in Italy and across Europe, for her expertise. So very, very thankful for her wisdom and her insights on what's going on across the globe right now with situations. This Thursday, so in 2 days from now, we've got Allegra Edwards, the star of Upload on my Instagram Live. So looking forward to chatting with her about that as well. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Cheers.